Is it possible to make an MVP formula? Which characters are most likely to get MVP? Which statistic contributes the most to getting MVP? And lastly, how close can we actually get to the elusive MVP formula? Today, I will answer these questions. Last week, I made a video about the MVP formula which slightly blew up, and one of the top comments was this. There's a screenshot on Reddit I remember seeing of somebody having more damage dealt, more final hits, blah 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 blah, but they are not the MVP. I went looking for that Reddit post, but I couldn't find it. However, I know what they mean, because I have seen it myself in my own games. One DPS could have every single stat higher than the other DPS and still not be the MVP. This means that we are missing a piece of the puzzle. So I went into the depths of Reddit to look for more information, and that's when I found this Reddit post by this guy. This Reddit user claims to have data mined the MVP weightage numbers from the game files. Immediately, this caught my attention, because the damage, healing, and damage taken numbers were really close to what I tested in the previous video. And because of that, I have no reason to believe that he's lying. I compared the weightage numbers with the experiment I conducted last week, and the results were not as close as I would have hoped, differing by as much as 8%. Upon further examination of the post, this Redditor describes that there are baselines for each character. The character baselines and weightage also differ by MMR. Yes, you heard me right. Some characters are more likely to get MVP. My guess is that the system was put in place to account for skill differences on certain characters within the different MMR brackets. Possibly, another reason is to account for the parts of the hero's kits which didn't contribute to the MVP stat at all. For example, Rocket Raccoon's revive or Adam Warlock's revive. Over here, I've listed all the characters in descending order based on how likely they are to get MVP. Take note that the numbers on the right are getting bigger as you go down because these character numbers act as divisors instead of multipliers. I am somewhat sure of this because I reverse engineered the formula based on this experiment here. Looking at the weightages here, I think it is safe to assume that there are no other stats involved in the MVP formula. However, I couldn't figure out what norm M, norm N, and norm K are. Most likely, these are normalized numbers, which is a statistical term. But what could M, N, and K be? Comment down below if you have a guess or if you have any idea. While this post alone already tells us so much new information about the MVP system, I decided to see if I could take it one step further. With more testing, is it possible to determine which statistic is the most important? And furthermore, can we formulate the exact formula that NetEase uses for the MVP system? So, to start working our way towards the MVP formula, I would first need to re-examine and retest what we discovered in the previous video. Now that we know that different characters affect the MVP numbers. So first, I tested the rate at which the MVP system updates. This will give us an idea of how acceptable of an error margin we should have. So the slowest change in MVP was about a quarter second. Next, I looked at the relationship between damage, healing, and damage blocked, this time on the same character, Rocket Raccoon. Rocket Raccoon deals 1008 damage here, and in order to get MVP, the other Rocket Raccoon has to heal 900 health or block 1700 points of damage. And the cool thing about this is, if you simply multiply 1700 by the weightage number given above, damage taken for example, you can see that it just nice exceeds 1000. This is the same case for the healing number. This means that the MVP formula for damage, healing, and damage taken is pretty simple. Most likely it is just your damage number multiplied by the weightage plus the healing number multiplied by the weightage plus the damage block multiplied by the weightage. But we knew that much from the previous video. So what's new? Here we go. Next, I tested final hits. Here's where things get a bit strange. In this experiment here, both Scarlet Witches damaged the bot at the same time, but one of them secured the final hit. The Scarlet Witch that secured the final hit did 130 damage. This second Scarlet Witch that you're watching right now does not have the one final hit, and in order to get MVP, she needed to deal 400 damage. This means that one final hit is technically worth about 270 damage done, which is actually really little. I found this extremely strange, so I reproduced the experiment with Punisher instead. And while the Punisher with the final hit dealt 131 damage, the other Punisher needed about 396 damage to get MVP, which is almost exactly as much as the Scarlet Witch experiment. This is really strange if you ask me. Because in my experience playing Marvel Rivals, final hit seems to play quite a huge role in getting MVP. So it's really strange that it's only 270 here. My guess is that final hits are also part of the KDA formula, which we're going to cover right now. This is even more confusing. To test eliminations, I had one Scarlet Witch kill a Groot, meaning she dealt 850 damage and she had one final hit and one elimination. Then, the second Scarlet Witch would keep damaging Groot, making sure not to kill him until she got the MVP. And she only got the MVP at 3064. And this was really strange for me, because if you factor in the fact that one final hit is about 270 damage, this means that one elimination is worth 2000 damage. 2000 damage! Which to me seems highly improbable. I then repeated this experiment with Iron Man. Same thing, the first Iron Man dealt 850 damage and got one elimination and one final hit, and the second Iron Man had to deal 3066 damage in order to get MVP, which is just 2 damage higher than the previous Scarlet Witch experiment. I don't know, what do you think? Let me know down below. I find this really strange that eliminations seem to be weighted so highly. Keep in mind that the whole point of all of these tests and experiments is to try to reverse engineer an MVP formula at the end of the day. But given such strange results, I don't think I can. So next, things got even stranger. Next, to test assists, similar to the last episode, I had a Mantis damage boost a second Mantis which eliminated a Luna. The first Mantis then killed the Luna again herself. This means that the only difference between the first and the second Mantis is one assist. Subsequently, the second Mantis only had to hit the bot once, 50 damage, for the MVP to transfer to them, which made zero sense to me because of what happens next. I then repeated the experiment, but instead of having one assist, I did it with 3 assists. And instead of requiring one hit, the second Mantis required 1500 damage exactly in order to equate to the 3 assists. I'll explain why this is the case right after the deaths experiment, because KDA probably worked together. For the deaths experiment, you can see that even though the first Spider-Man has 3 deaths, the MVP doesn't pass over to the second Spider-Man until he gets a kill. Afterwards, the first Spider-Man who had more deaths had to deal an additional 165 damage in order to get MVP again. So why is this the case? Why is it that the KDA formula seems so complicated? I think the short answer is, it's actually very complicated. Going back to the Reddit post, they suggested that this could be a possible KDA formula right here, which is why even though death has a weightage of 0.4, it doesn't necessarily mean higher deaths is better, because deaths could be used as a divisor instead. But here's the thing, this function here could be any function, and the only way to get the correct formula is to test enough and reverse engineer and somehow trial and error and hit the right solution. Or you could continue data mining the files, but I actually don't know how to do that, so I can't do that. Judging by the fact that this Redditor also couldn't find the formula, I think it's safe to say that perhaps it's not stored client-side. Sadly, because I couldn't find the formula for the KDA portion, I couldn't make the entire MVP formula. I tried for 5 days worth of my free time before I gave up. After all, based on the difference of the 2 assist experiments, we can assume that the formula is fairly complicated, and thus, we have reached the end of this video. There could be some other statistics that are still secretly used in the MVP calculation. Now that the developers have confirmed that performance-based ranking is done by comparing your performance to the character average, we know that they have the ability to do so. This means that the elusive Norm N, Norm M, and Norm K could be one of those rankings, I don't know. In that case, I'm fucked and all of this is meaningless. But I hope that this video is entertaining and informative for you, even though the MVP no longer implies that you get higher rank points. And because it's no longer linked to rank, I also decided not to update the tier list because based on the comments on the previous video, it sounds like everyone hated my opinion from that part. So thank you so much for watching. Support the channel by subscribing and see you on my stream, guys. Bye bye.